Let's turn now to the search for answers into the deadly terror attacks at the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya. Just this week, we learned from several newly surfaced emails that the initial talking points about the attack were purposefully altered to remove any reference to a terror attack or the specific al-Qaeda-linked group. And now there are new questions about how far this fallout from the latest scandal will reach into the White House. Let's bring in our political insiders. John LeBoutillier, former Republican congressman for New York. Pat Caddell, Fox News contributor. Former pollster for President Jimmy Carter. Doug Schoen, he too a Fox News contributor. And a former pollster for Bill Clinton. Doug,
yes.
Does it look like, by virtue of these documents and the whistleblower testimony, that the Obama administration intentionally misled or even lied to the American people to cover up the truth?
There certainly is misrepresentations, Greg, about what happened, the talking points, whether we could have sent a relief force in to get the survivors out, the whole issue of what the president knew, what the Secretary of State knew. Those questions have gotten worse. Bottom line, we've talked, Greg, about a presidency in crisis, a presidency adrift, and bottom line now, unanswered questions, and they are getting more and more serious.
We now know, Pat, that the Obama administration knew the consulate was a death trap and did nothing about it. They refused to help those who were under attack. They covered up the truth after the fact, and then they arguably retaliated against those who wanted to tell the truth. You think Tom Donilon needs to answer for things?
I think we need to move the focus from the minutia to the center of this, which is the White House. As Howard, to paraphrase Howard Baker, what did the president know and what did he do? Look, what we have an invisible man here, Tom Donilon, the National Security Advisor, right? The man unlike Kissinger. I mean, nobody mentions his name. Everything was being run. Here's the story. It was a political story. 8 weeks before the election, the administration has a narrative. The narrative is simple. We killed bin Laden. We stopped terrorism. Now it's threatened. What do? Donilon moves, because remember, he's the only political operative to ever take over the NSC, isolates the president, and then they proceed down a road which is reminiscent. What the maestro is doing is he minimizes. First, they minimize, they marginalize, they misdirect, and then they mislead. And all of that process is going on in the White House and directed.
Directed by Donilon.
Directed by Donilon.
Do you agree with that, John?
Well, not only that, we had talked about Donilon on a previous show here with you, Greg, and we brought up then, maybe it was a year ago, I don't remember, that Donilon was the leaker-in-chief, repeatedly leaking classified information about the Stuxnet, the computer virus that maybe we or the Israelis planted in Iran. He leaked all sorts of stuff after the bin Laden raid, never got investigated, never got punished, got away with it because the media and the Democrats in the Senate let him get away with it.
That's all right. The president's press secretary has for 8 months insisted that the White House and the State Department made no substantive changes. Here he is last November. Take a listen.
What the White House and the State Department have made clear that the single adjustment that was made to those talking points by either of these two institutions were changing the word consulate to diplomatic facility because consulate was inaccurate.
We now know that's not true, and he just got absolutely beat up at the news conference on Friday.
But let's go back to where Pat and John left it. He is taking direction from high administration officials.
Carney is. And bottom line, Donilon was facilitating a political narrative that this was not an act of terror, hence what the dissembling by Carney. Has Carney lost all credibility now?
He is, you know what, he is the spiritual descendant of Ron Ziegler. Except that Ron Ziegler was PR, this man claimed to be a journalist.
Ziegler famously said, oh, Watergate's just a third-rate burglary.
A third-rate burglary, and also we have the John Dean report. The ARB is becoming the descendant of that. I mean, I was the youngest person on Nixon's enemies list. I swear to God, the parallels in reverse are unbelievable. But Carney has no credibility. But it's part what Doug just said. They have a narrative they must push.
John, what about Victoria Nuland, who's the top aide to Secretary Hillary Clinton? And now we have her email, and she says, you know, essentially, we can't tell the truth here because Congress and the American public will blame us, the State Department, for 4 American deaths.
Right. Well, we're going to get to...
Is she finished?
Well, what about Sharon
I'm
Mills?
not sure. Is she even still there? I'm not sure. I think
Yes,
Kerry,
she's finished. I don't think there's
Kerry
any
was
doubt that her
bringing-
credibility has been eviscerated. Bottom line, no one has credibility in this process, which is one of the reasons why we need...
Carney, no credibility. Donlan, no credibility. Nuland, no credibility. What about Obama?
Well, now we get to the central question.
Right.
What was the president doing? I was in the White House or around the White House with the president when we had the hostage crisis. I know what that president went through. We're having an attack. Just take the picture of the bin Laden raid of everyone in the Situation Room. There's nobody there. That night, the president is isolating and ready for a fundraiser. We don't know. We know he had no communication with the Secretary of Defense after 5 o'clock. The real question is, why did they move him away? And I'll tell you why. Because politically, they wanted to get this away from him in order to preserve the election. And like the Watergate, all cover-ups, the price what Donald's produced in masterminding this is a threat to the administration, to the very viability of Obama.
You know what? There's another scandal that is troubling the Obama administration. That's the IRS that targeted any group that had the name Tea Party or Patriot in their title. And now we know that Lois Lerner, who heads the division, knew about this thing for the last 2 long years, didn't utter a word.
Another a quirky analogy to Nixon.
Right.
Where the White House then tried to sick the IRS on political enemies.
It was one of the articles of impeachment against Nixon.
And here what we have is the official explanation is a low-level IRS employee in Cincinnati got this going. If you believe that, when the Tea Party was bedeviling Obama in 2010 and 11 over the debt ceiling, the idea that the White House is not involved with getting this investigation to intimidate or put out of business the Tea Party, I have to believe it.
Government abuse of power is a federal crime.
Right. Greg, this is the total politicization of the federal government. We have the Justice Department, the IRS, we have the White House via Donlan.
Right.
Greg, there are answers to questions that have to be gotten for us to get our government
But the
back.
politicalization, it is, you know, Chicago gangster politics going on. But the IRS thing, they're going to be put in charge of enforcing health care. 16,000 more agents. How do you feel about that? But let me say, go back to the other issue. There are some big questions. Stop dealing with the minutia. The question is, where did the video come from? It wasn't the talking. It didn't fall from the sky, Greg.
Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, of course, delivering one of the most highly charged testimonies not that long ago on the deadly terror attack in Benghazi. Now there are new questions about how the fallout from those attacks could impact a potential bid for Secretary Clinton for the White House in 2016. Let's bring them back in. John LeBoutillier, Pat Caddell, Doug Schoen, our political insiders. So now we learn this week, Pat, one of the whistleblowers, Gregory Hicks, says, I told her the night of the attack it was a terrorist attack, and yet for days thereafter, she blamed it on this protest inspired by a video online.
You know, she promoted this line, the vice president did, and so did the president, and it didn't fall out of the sky, as I said earlier. And here's the problem with the Hicks testimony. He wasn't interviewed by the board, the review board.
Right.
Neither was Hillary Clinton.
Right.
The point, when we said, when Obama asked on this show with you hosting, and we said on the 60 Minutes that it was the greatest payoff in political history, she was taking the fall for him on what he did. Let's get the central point. It isn't about politics. Everybody is harming this. It is about the truth. And I'm afraid that we're about to see the truth swamped by Karl Rove and Republicans who want to play politics, and the Democrats who are embracing, let's talk about Hillary.
Karl's Super PAC Crossroads already came out with an ad, and in part it plays the following clip. Here's Hillary Clinton in her testimony. Take a listen.
The fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
Two-part question, John. Is that going to haunt her for the next 4 years? And second of all, was it a big mistake for Karl Rove's Super PAC Crossroads to use that already in an ad that's political?
I think it is going to haunt her a little bit, but the Karl Rove has, as Pat just said, he's politicized this thing.
Playing into the hands of Dems.
And what does Obama want? You know, Obama wants the Benghazi snake thrown over on her. Let her have the thing. And it keeps us from talking about what did the president do.
Does the White House love the fact that the media is focusing now on Hillary Clinton?
As Dianne Feinstein said this morning, there were, 32 specific queries about Hillary Clinton, what she knew and when she knew it. As Pat said correctly, the question is, what did the president know? What was the narrative? How were the talking points altered? Bottom line, Karl Rove's playing politics. This isn't about politics. This is about getting at the truth and what the White House knew and what it did.
We have the story on all of this is simple. We have these people in politics. They are not elected to put their parties first. They're to tell us the truth. We have begged from the truth from day one. It is, and this is the moral question of our time, and we need to get to the bottom of this, and it starts with the president and the White House. Everyone else, let the chips fall where they may, and you can only do this one way.
Right. Select committee. You've got to have a select committee,
and
right?
Here's what we have. We have 139 Republican members of the House of Representatives have asked Speaker Boehner.
Why isn't Boehner doing it?
Well, it's probably two things. Number one, he's afraid that, like the impeachment thing of Clinton 14 years ago, it will look too political and will end up hurting the Republicans. Secondly, he's got to tick off 5 committee chairmen, senior Republicans. He's going to take this away from them. I predict he will end up doing it. There will be a select committee.
There is a huge question here. On the anniversary of 9/11, we lost an ambassador. Suddenly, talking points developed that talked about films and videos when we knew it was a terrorist attack. There are unanswered questions. We have to get to the bottom.
We got to hear from the evacuees, don't we?
And we need to. No one has spoken to the evacuees. Can you believe this? They go to the central
Well, they haven't
point,
been allowed to.
But they haven't been allowed to. The FBI has helped cover them
because they're afraid.
They're afraid of the truth, and only a select committee that has the power.
We don't need politics. We need the truth.
Gentlemen,
only a select committee can do what needs to be done.
Doug Schoen, Pat Caddell, John LeBoutillier. Gentlemen, our political insiders, thanks for being with us. You can get more from the political insiders every Monday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern at livefoxnews.com. And, of course, they'll be back here next Sunday. You can also follow them on Twitter at FN Insiders. Heather?